The alarm went off at 6 a.m., sharp as always, yet Thomas remained still. His eyes were open, fixed on the cracks in the ceiling he had memorized years ago. The buzzing on the nightstand grew louder in his mind until he finally reached over, turned it off, and let his arm fall heavily against the sheets. Another day had begun, though he felt no urgency to meet it. At 46, Thomas found himself trapped in a peculiar in-between. He was not young enough to feel invincible, nor old enough to accept slowing down gracefully. He stared at the reflection in the bathroom mirror, pale skin under the harsh light, fine lines tracing the edges of his eyes, and shoulders that slouched more than they used to. He brushed his teeth mechanically, avoiding eye contact with the man looking back. Downstairs, the kitchen counter held yesterday's unopened mail and a pile of bills. His coffee machine hissed, filling the air with a bitter aroma that once energized him but now only reminded him of routine. He poured a cup, held it, and set it down untouched, the steam drifting away like the energy he once had. He sat at the table, scrolling through emails on his phone, deleting more than he read. Messages about meetings, updates, and deadlines filled the screen, but none stirred anything inside him. Thomas had a good job, steady income, respectable position, benefits most would envy. He had worked hard for decades to reach the stability, yet the stability felt like a cage. Every project was predictable, every achievement felt hollow. He no longer asked what came next because the answer was always the same: more of this. He was not unhappy at home, but he was not present either. His teenage son barely spoke to him beyond quick greetings, and his wife, Claire, seemed to exist in a parallel routine of her own. They weren't hostile, they were simply distant, two lives running side by side without intersecting. Thomas noticed the way she laughed at her phone late at night while he pretended to be asleep. Not an affair, he thought, but certainly a world where he was no longer invited. The cracks began showing in ways he couldn't hide. He snapped at small inconveniences, avoided gatherings, and found excuses to stay late at work, though he did nothing meaningful with the time. His colleagues admired his discipline, not realizing it was avoidance disguised as dedication. He envied younger coworkers who talked about travel, dreams, and ambitions with a fire he had long forgotten. Weekends felt heavier than weekdays. Free time meant facing silence. He wandered through hardware stores, bought tools he rarely used, and drove aimlessly without destination. The man who once loved hiking, painting, and reading thick novels now felt paralyzed by choices. Every hobby seemed pointless before he even began. It was during one of these empty Sundays that he found himself in the attic, sorting through boxes that had not been touched in years. Dust coated everything, and the air smelled faintly of cardboard and time. Inside one box, he found old sketchbooks from his 20s, pages filled with pencil drawings, some rough, others detailed, all bursting with a vibrancy he had forgotten he possessed. His fingers lingered on the smudges of graphite, and for a brief moment, he remembered staying up past midnight sketching cityscapes, driven by nothing more than curiosity and joy. The realization hit him with uncomfortable clarity. Somewhere along the way, he had traded curiosity for certainty, and in doing so, had lost a part of himself. The thought was both painful and strangely liberating. He could not erase the years, but he could acknowledge that something within him still longed to breathe. That evening, he set up a small corner of the garage as a makeshift studio. Nothing grand, just an old table, a lamp, and a fresh sketchpad. His hand trembled slightly as he began, the pencil hesitant at first. The lines were crooked, the proportions awkward, but the act itself filled the room with a quiet energy. He did not announce it to his family, did not post it online, did not expect applause. For the first time in years, he did something simply because he wanted to. The crisis did not vanish overnight. He still woke up some mornings with dread, still felt the gap between himself and those around him, still questioned his choices. But now, there was also a thread of movement. Each sketch gave him a reason to look forward to tomorrow, however small. He began to notice the way light shifted across the kitchen counter, how the wrinkles in Claire's face deepened when she smiled, how his son's shoes left trails of mud that told stories of their own. Thomas was not suddenly transformed, nor did he solve the puzzle of midlife. But he had found a crack in the monotony where air could slip through. He learned that a midlife crisis was not always about grand gestures or reckless reinvention. Sometimes, it was about remembering what once made you feel alive and allowing yourself to start again, imperfectly. And so, The man who had once sat at the table with cold coffee now found himself holding a pencil with quiet determination. Life had not become easier, but it had become his again, even if only one line at a time.